Hey everybody, it's Ryan. And just a quick note, Abby and I cover a lot of very polarizing, very emotionally charged topics in this episode. And there's one thing that I just want to make sure comes through. And because there's a lot of stuff we say that could trigger a lot of people and send them into their thoughts, I just want to make sure that I say it up front in plain English, just in case anybody would have missed it. When talking to somebody that you disagree with about something important, the best odds you have of that being a productive, healthy conversation is to dig deeper and find the person behind the argument or the position or the opinion that you're up against. Find the human and start there. If you take one thing away from this episode, I hope that's it. And you just got it. So we're good. I feel better. Anyway, here's the episode. I've never done that vocal warm-up. I've done vocal warm-ups, but I have not yet done the me one that the Looney Tunes made us think was the only one. Welcome to the True North. I feel like I have to go welcome. I have to smack him in the face with the welcome. Welcome to the True North podcast, where two practicing light workers get together every week to continue an ongoing conversation about wholeness and healing for body and mind so that you can live as your true self and follow your true north. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Abby.
I wonder if I stitched all of them together and took out the intros where it was just one long thing, if it would really sound like an ongoing conversation.
Probably.
We should start each one with so, as you were saying last time.
Yeah. Right.
Or just have a 52-hour conversation and then just divide it up across the whole year.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're what is this, episode 49? We're
47.
47, that's right. 47 hours into
an ongoing conversation.
Yeah. Hello.
Okay.
Happy New Year.
It is the new year. We are 7 days in.
Yes, we are.
It is the second week. We're already a week. We already have a week under our belt. We only have 51 left to go.
I'm just going to lead right into it. A lot of people find that the new year is really it's fresh. It's a do-over, a blank slate, all of that, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm okay, yeah, we've had some things sort of regress in terms of the virus and shutting down and whatnot, but I finally feel like we're come what?
What?
Please delete that.
I don't think I'm going to.
Coming to a place where I was starting to feel some hope, right? I was starting to see that light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, we're finally we're getting organized enough to get some systems in place and things are equalizing a little bit, and then slap in the face.
Have fun storming the castle.
Yes, slap in the face. There goes. There goes my light.
See, if you had seen Nightmare Before Christmas, you were just quoting the little kid who goes, "There goes Christmas."
But I still haven't seen it.
Good Lord. Do we need to talk about tell people? Is there anybody out there who doesn't know what's happening on January, or I guess it was January 6th, 2021? I feel like it's a historical thing.
Go do your research.
Go look at what people are saying on Facebook.
Don't
that's
go
the
there.
worst idea.
No, don't go there.
No.
Read a reputable news source, which is hard to find these days. But
people stormed the Capitol.
Yep.
To overthrow the stuff that's happening there regarding the election of the 46th president.
Yeah, and so that sort of just kind of put a damper on things in a way where I feel like it immediately took us back to this place of being unsettled, and fear is completely escalated, and just the unknown. And so I wanted to start this episode, which I told you before we started recording, just putting it out there that we're aware of the events that are happening in our country right now.
And we care.
We do.
Yeah.
However, we're not going to get into a full-on conversation about it.
Yeah, I don't know. It just, there's so much talk about it right now. Like everyone's talking about this and saying a bunch of words, and I'm really, really hesitant to just add to the noise.
Exactly. That's my point. Like I don't want it to go by unnoticed from us, but I also don't want to create, as we've talked about before, the polarities. So
Right. Like what did I say a couple episodes couple episodes ago? Weaponizing polarization.
correct. We're not doing that.
We don't want to do that. But
No.
also, if I can just be honest, I'm kind of in our audience business right now because I'm also dealing with the stark realization that no matter how we say what we're trying to say, someone's going to hear not what we're trying to say. Someone will hear something else. That's just
true.
a fact. And so now I'm hesitant to say anything that would like polarize people. I'm a little gun shy with the I respectfully don't give a shit. Like I have
Yeah.
Okay, I've told you I have some friends who like will listen to the podcast and then call me the next day or that day and be like, here's what you missed, or here's, you said this, but it sounds like just kind of like giving me the constructive criticism that helps me,
I need those friends. Nobody calls me on my crap.
I will give them your number. No, but like even like one of them was when we did the patriarchy episode. Later that day that it was released, I have a friend who polled me and he was like, actually, Bechdel was a woman, and so that's what led to the little disclaimer at the beginning. And so I have that kind of like built into my life on purpose, the checks and balances and people who will fact check me and call me out. And after doing the
but that's a fact. Like that's just a fact.
It is a fact,
that was
right?
overlooked.
That's
not an opinion. So
it's not a difference of opinion. It is the fact.
It is a
fact. But then sometimes I'll say something and one of them will call me out on it and be like, it sounds like an example. When you were talking about how you were raised in a racist community until you met a black person and that made you less racist. And I was raised in a homophobic community until I met gay people and that made me less homophobic, right? One of my buddies called me and was like, you're kind of making it sound like if someone was raised racist and they didn't have those experiences, that it's okay for them to keep being racist.
Oh.
Like if you were raised that way, that's just
fuck?
like if you had never left rural Nebraska and never experienced any people of color other than the one across the street that everyone told you to go to the other side of the street when you cross, then
it would be okay.
One, it would be understandable why you would still be a racist. But then, and that's one thing. But what my buddy was saying was like, you may be giving people the impression that it is okay to continue to be a racist if you don't have those experiences.
No.
If I grew up that way, and that's just the lens I was given, and nobody came along and changed it, then it's just okay. Like, you can't expect me to not. Well, then if you're fucking listening to this podcast, we're that lens.
We are that lens.
So
that
like,
is definitely not the message.
Right. So we have this episode talking about how we both came from a place that was not inclusive and we moved towards inclusion and breaking down barriers and breaking down polarities and polarization. And then all of a sudden I hear my first feedback I get is, you may be giving people excuses to say extremely polarized and racist. I'm like, well, fuck, man. Like, what if somebody out there hears that? I don't know what we could have said. Like, I can kind of see it, but the listener would have to do a bunch of like mental gymnastics to take our thing and then land there.
That's a big stretch.
But then what if that's happening?
But see,
and then what if we talk about Capitol Hill and then
no.
someone takes something that we say to mean something we're not saying,
right?
And then we're feeding into the thing that we don't, like, how do you talk about it? Because like you said, we don't want to not talk about it. I've got friends who are influencers who are like, on the day that this was happening, we're like announcing the launch of a new product. And I'm like, are you tone deaf? Like, at least acknowledge it.
Yes, which is why I wanted to acknowledge that we care. I'm not sure where to go with it after that.
I don't either, because I'm afraid that anything we say could be taken the wrong way. And this is so sensitive and already so polarized and so charged.
This is where I really struggle, because I mean, so many things are like that in my life right now. The coronavirus and the masks wearing and the vaccines. And even when we're just talking about childhood vaccines, this is not something a lot of people know about me. I'm about to get a whole bunch of hate mail, but I don't vaccinate my kid. I immunize my kid. Very different. I do not do standardized vaccines.
Right.
But immediately when I say that, all of the, I get a lot of anti-vax hate mail
the
coming my way.
anti-vaxxers.
Right. And so it's weird. Like, this is what I've noticed from people of influence. Like, this has happened with Brene Brown. This has happened with Elizabeth Gilbert. They're sort of neutral, generally speaking, like in politics, just kind of what's going on. And then something major happens, an election, a major pandemic, anything that could basically, yes, polarize us. And they take a side. Naturally, they take a side. And they all of a sudden lose so many people. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I'm bothered by that is because their work is so necessary. It is so necessary. But because they chose to pick a side, that person that's listening is like, oh, you're not on my side, you're out.
Right.
And so I guess the reason why I want to keep talking about this stuff and I want to keep bringing it up is because I want to change that mindset where we can have an opinion. You and I can have an opinion. We can share our thoughts. We can share our experiences, but it doesn't polarize us. I want to teach people how to say, I respectfully disagree with you, but I still want to learn from you. And I still want to learn from them. Like, I want it to be a mutual relationship and not, oh, sorry, we can't agree on this, I'm out.
Yeah, I have a friend who posted a thing, just her own opinions. She's got a little bit of a following. And one of the first comments on the Facebook thing was a person just saying, and we will no longer be following anything having to do with this account, period. Just, I'm out. You disagree with me, so I'm out.
Yeah.
And that right there, the
you're part of the problem, not the solution.
Yes. But then the question is, like, okay, going back to Capitol Hill, I think I know how we can talk about this without having to actually talk. Like,
I also want to go back to this racist comment because that's really bothering me. But keep going.
Well, this could feed into that. So a lot of people, I'm going to say both sides. I don't even like. I mean, there are two sides. There are sides to this, right?
Because now you're dividing it, right?
Right. But I'm just naming the fact that it is divided, and on both sides, people are bringing up Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. The people who support the insurgents are saying, you guys tore up the town before and you supported it, and now you're against it when we're doing it. Mm-hmm. And so they're calling out that inequality, that quote unquote inequality. Mm-hmm. And then the people on the other side are saying, hey, black people riot and they get rubber bullets and tear gassed and murdered in the streets. White people riot and the cops just stand there and open the doors and let them in. That's the race inequality we're talking about. So they're both bringing this back to BLM. Mm-hmm. But neither side is saying anything that the other side is going to hear.
Yes.
Right? So I've got people on in my social media who are saying things from both sides. I'm hearing them and I'm seeing them, but I'm also seeing that they're not landing on the other side at all. Mm-hmm. And so what I've been hesitant to say something because if I say something about my opinion on the matter, it's either going to get agreed with by other people who already agree with me, like all the likes and the hearts and the support, or I'm just going to get unfollowed by people who don't. And then, if anything, they're just more galvanized to dig in their heels on the position they have. So I'm not doing anything by stating my opinion, even if I think it is correct, is only furthering polarization.
Yes, I agree.
So then if you're not going to state your opinion and what you think and make your good points and call out all the things, then how do you talk about it? Mm-hmm. How do you say something that, like, you consider your audience? What do you want them to hear? And then how do you say a thing that's going to, you can't control it, but like increase your chances that it will be received? Mm-hmm. And this is not a situation in which you can point to the other side and say, you are wrong. Because in their perspective, it is a person who is wrong telling you that you are wrong. Mm-hmm. Because, of course they would. So are you going to listen to that? No. You know?
Exactly. You're going to immediately get defensive and shove something, throw something back at you about why you're wrong.
And I've read the same debate so many times, so many different people having it in so many different forums. And it's just not going anywhere.
We're going in circles.
No one is. I was going to say no one's convincing anybody, but really it's that nobody's allowing themselves to be open to anything other than what they already believe. It's your cognitive bias. Everyone's cognitive bias is ramped up. Mm-hmm. Cognitive bias, positivity bias, negativity bias. There's some bias. Whichever one is the one that's like you only take in information that already supports what you believe. Like you decide you believe a thing, and then any information that might possibly support that you accept with open arms, and it boosts that opinion.
You also accept it as truth, whether you've done the research or not.
And then any other information that contradicts what you believe to be true, sometimes you don't even notice. You don't even see. You are completely blind to it. And that is the most dangerous bias anybody could bring to something like this. And it's happening all over the place. And then what do? Is they go and they talk and say something that's going to get not even heard by the people who need to hear it the most.
Yeah. It's how I feel about childhood vaccines. Because your doctor tells you, the Pediatric Association tells you, we take that at face value. We know that we don't want to get polio and whooping cough and all this stuff. And then, so you listen to that because those are trusted officials. Your brain wants to believe that. You're taking care, you're not, you're getting the message that if you don't do this, you are neglecting your child. You're not taking care of your child. And I'm like, there's so much information on the other side, so much that's overlooked, completely overlooked, and we don't ever question it. Right. And that's a very black and white example of what I feel, like what you're saying right now. It's just, you're just taking it because it matches your line of thinking that I want to take care of my kid. This is what a, professional person, a doctor, someone of importance said I am supposed to do. And so we do it. And then then we go back to this, like, well, you're either with me or you're without. There's like no middle ground. I'm like, but there is a middle ground and I'm in it. Right.
It's hard for me to have the vaccine conversation with anybody who has an opinion because I'll piss them both off. I am actually in neither camp. And what scares me is the blindness on either side. If you blindly follow the experts, quote unquote, and just do whatever they say, there are some serious negative side effects because of what goes into, and more importantly, what doesn't go into the production and the distribution of certain vaccines. But then if you blindly say, I'm against all vaccines because all vaccines are evil, then there are also some serious deleterious effects to our species if that's where you are. Correct. As well. So exactly. It is the willful ignorance to the information that the other side is looking at that is fatal. Not necessarily the information you might find or the information that you're using. It's the, here's what supports my view, here's what doesn't. So this is what I'm going to listen to and throw across the fence, and this is the stuff I'm just going to find a way to, I don't even remember what the debate was. I saw a post on some group where someone said, what is this about? I think it was about the anti-vax thing, but it was a person who said, hey, someone made this argument against us, and it sounds like a really good one. So can you guys help me refute it? Because I got nothing.
Oh.
What the fuck are we doing?
Instead of opening their eyes to it, they're like, we got to get better at refuting
Maybe it's a good argument because it's a good argument.
Holy shit. Right, exactly.
Hey, I know that this is wrong because it's coming from the other side, but you guys are smarter than me, so help me figure out how to shut this person down.
No.
I don't even remember, because again, when it comes down to things like this, I try to get in on both sides to hear where they're getting their information and where their thought process and where their values and their ideologies, and try to put together a picture of why would someone think this and why would someone think this, And so I don't even remember which camp they were in, but that was how the question was framed. And I was like, oh, I don't even know what your opinion is on this topic, but I know that you're part of the problem.
Yes. You just kind of simplified this a little bit and just sort of bring this together. Like, what we are doing is we are seriously sitting in everybody else's business.
Yes.
when we were doing all of this, oh, I had a really good point that just left my brain. Damn it.
Oh, man, I hate when
explode.
things just fall out of your head like that.
But I think, when we're looking for the antidote to kind of what's happening in our world right now, what we're saying and the message that we're trying to get across as we're talking about these things, like how I grew up not understanding African American people and then having an experience that opened my eyes and being open to that. But the point is if you stay in your business, and that's what it was, you were talking about, like, you look at both sides of the camp and you're like, okay, what's driving that person? What's driving that person? Well, it's the same thing. Like, this person's racist. Why is he racist? Well, let's think about, like, do I know where they grew up? Do I know their background? Do I know any of their stories that would help me be a little bit more open to the conversation that they're having? Not that I have to believe that they're right or wrong. That's not the point.
Right.
If they show up racist to me, I'm not saying I've got to listen to that and then just agree with them.
There's
not the
nothing
point.
that makes racism okay. That's not what you're saying.
Exactly. But I want to know what's driving it. Why are you that way in the first place? But then I also want to understand the other side of the story. And I think the most important thing to kind of take away from all of this is staying in the middle ground where you can ask questions. And I don't want to say neutral to the point where I'm now you got me worried about our audience, like
right?
misconstruing this as saying, well, if I'm in the middle, then I don't care about either side, because that is not true.
No, right.
Like you said, I am not all of a sudden saying racism is okay because I'm going to listen to that person or figure out what's driving their behavior. I'm just choosing not to shut down. I'm choosing to stay in my business and figure out what's driving it so that I can perhaps offer an opportunity and experience a story, model something that might get them to open their eyes to see humanity.
Right.
So
Yes. Okay. So again, I said this in the episode that where we also said things that may have gotten misconstrued into people thinking that we were okay with. Okay, so I'm going to say this again, but I need you to picture this, because I didn't say this as clearly then as I could now. But, like, you got to think about it like layers, like a pie. Mm-hmm. And on the top layer is where your position is, whether it's the insurgents on Capitol Hill, whether it's Black Lives Matter, no matter vaccinations, masks, whatever it is, you have an opinion, and that sits on the very top. Yep. And that opinion is built on things, and those things have layers that go down deeper. And at the very base is like you're a little kid and you're scared of your parents or whatever. Like that's like the base layer that all this comes from, right? And so then when you're talking about being in the middle, you're not talking about being in the middle on this upper top layer of your position on an issue. Mm-hmm. It's like several layers down where you're a human and they're a human. You're scared and they're scared. You want the best for your kid. They want the best for their kid.
Yes.
And so, like, as someone who, I'll take a side, I don't think that it was right for them to storm the Capitol for the reasons that they did or the way that they did. And I don't think it was right. You know, like, there's so many things I think were wrong with how this went down.
Sure.
That being said, for me to follow my own advice would just say, okay, why are they doing it? So we're in the age of, there's Hamilton, about people picking up guns and doing a revolution, overthrowing governments. There's Les Mis. We resonate with these stories of small, swarthy.
I like that word. Wow. I have no idea if that's a real word.
Means. Holy fuck. You know what?
I'm going to look it up.
Oh my God, no. Hang on. That's in there somewhere.
Swarthy.
I have a feeling that word does not mean anything close to what it should mean, or what I think it meant. You know where that came from? Oh my God! Okay, so we did church.
How do you spell that?
I don't even know. I literally just said a word I've never... Okay, I know where that came from. When I was doing church, there was this program called Awana. AWANA. It stands for Approved Workmen Are Not Ashamed. And it was like just like church camp, but it happened every week at church, everything. And then they had this like athletic component that was like the Awana games, and you got like divided into 4 teams, and
was good.
And then all of a sudden like you're arbitrarily assigned a color out of 4 colors, but then what do? You're just like, fuck that color, and that color's going down. You guys are losers, and we're like, we just go total like full bore American. And I remember being on the green team, and the one like counselor leader dude, whatever, whoever who was like in charge of the green team said, because there were fewer of us than everybody else because the numbers didn't work out, so there was like one less of us than everybody else, and he's like, we're small but we're swarthy. That's where that came
Swarthy.
from. I don't even know what swarthy means, but that those two words
That's
are like
where it
linked.
is.
Small but swarthy. Did you look up what it means?
No, I don't know how to spell it, so nothing's coming up.
I just did.
Swarthy.
Oh, fuck. It means dark-skinned.
No.
SWARTHY means dark-skinned. Why did he even say that?
Swarthy. He probably heard it from an adult. This is exactly what we're talking about. Like, what if an adult because it was a kid, right?
No, there was an adult that said that.
Oh, it was an adult that said it.
It was the leader of the team.
Totally blown my theory out of the water, because I'm like, if it's a kid, this is the problem. This is what we're talking about. You learn things from your adults that
maybe he
you
heard
just
that somewhere.
repeat.
Oh my God, I have to find out who that was and ask him, why the fuck did you say small but swarthy to a bunch of white kids in the church?
Oh, wow.
Okay, that was like the derailment of the century.
Totally.
We're not going to top that. What was I saying before? Oh, so small group of people overthrowing oppressive governments. Like there was one girl recorded on site saying this is a revolution. Oh. That's what they think they're doing. They think they are enacting their Second Amendment rights to take up arms against a tyrannical government. That's what they believe they're doing. That the government has wronged them, and it's not holding up its end of the deal to take care of them and do what is right. And that you can't even trust the government to keep the government in check. And so the only way to have any power in the situation is to put it in your own hands, show up in person, and demand the justice that you think you're entitled to. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, you can resonate with that. I think everybody who's listening to this knows how it feels to not trust their government to take care of them.
Yes, I would agree.
Right?
That's the middle ground.
That is the middle ground. I am not condoning how they're acting. I'm not condoning how they're behaving.
Right.
I'm trying to dig into a fear that's motivating it and saying, hey, maybe you from the other side of the fence are familiar with that same fear. And then maybe if you enter a conversation with someone about that, if you can find a true, authentic sentence that starts with we both, then you're getting somewhere.
Exactly. Yep.
Without having to condone, without even really condemning, because people will get super defensive against you just saying, so like leave all that up here on the surface. I get that your opinion and your position is this. I get that my position is this. My position is that your position is morally, ethically, vehemently wrong. Your position is that my position is morally, ethically, vehemently wrong.
Right.
Right?
So
they erected a cross on Capitol Hill. They obviously think God's on their side.
Yeah.
Right? So if that's where you're coming from, anything that opposes you is just wrong. So let's just set that over here. We both think the other is wrong. But where is something that we both agree on? Where is something aside from that, beneath that, underlying that, we both feel powerless. Right? And we both don't trust the man. And we both feel the need to, like you even said, like the unpredictability. Everything's in the air right now. Nobody knows where this is going. That's scary for all of us.
Yes.
So let's start there. Just start there.
Yes. Right. And this is where, like, how do you even start that conversation? How do you even set aside those differences? And I believe that the answer to that is you've got to stay in your own business. Because if you start getting defensive and you start throwing crap back on people and they say something and you find yourself getting worked up, you are sitting in their business because you're so worried about what they're saying and you're so worried about defending your view that then that conversation gets lost. And I know that's incredibly hard to do, to stay in your business, especially when you're freaking out, scared underneath, because there is no stability right now. That is one of our intrinsic needs, is that security, that safety. And when we don't have that, that can create some really erratic behavior. So like staying in your business in these times certainly takes quite a bit of courage, but it also takes a lot of mindfulness, that, okay, whoa, I'm triggered by that. Let's come back to the we, both, us conversation, But I'm just, you know what side I'm on? I'll tell you what side I'm on. I'm on humanity. I am. But the thing is, like, I would love to say this perfect world that we all live in love and light and nothing ever happens, but I don't think our souls would learn a damn thing if we didn't have injustice. And that's exactly what we're here to do. And so I'm not saying let's just, make everything sunshine and roses. It will never be that way. That's not the point. But if we can stay in our business and we can lead with humanity in mind, meeting you, I see you human, seeing the other person, whether I disagree with you or agree with you, it doesn't matter. I see you as a human, and there's something that's hurting you. There's something that's you're afraid of, just like I am. And like you said, like we said, there's this middle ground that I know we can get to that will help start building that solution. And then when we do that, I think what happens then is you find the balance. You find the balance of dark and light that we need for our souls to grow, for our souls to learn from. But right now, I feel like we were just starting to come closer back to balance, and wham,
Right. Well, I think another thing that we can talk about here to help is that this... Remember how I was talking about how I'm pretty sure my son's going to grow up to be somebody who can throw his weight around, and so now is the time to teach him how to be respectful of other people's bodies.
Yeah.
You can practice in the small stuff. You know, my whole thing with Ray Ron, there are people in my life who remind me of Ray Ron. And so for me to have a working, positive, healthy relationship with them means for me to go into myself, to go back into Ray Ron and find things in me that I see in them. Right? The stakes are not very high there, but it's practice. It's like your warm up for the big show, you know? And when you can do that with your relationships, with your friendships, with your kid, with your parents, with yourself, just working out those muscles and being able to take somebody that you're inherently at odds with on the surface and then digging back the layers until you find a thing that is where you and they are actually in the same place or coming from the same place. And just practice doing that wherever you can. Then when it comes to the big stuff, you actually have the strength to lift the load because you've been doing the small reps with the smaller weights.
Exactly. Right.
And one of the things...
And you start...
No, go ahead.
Well, you start... I like what you said. Like, you know, what I'm hearing you say, if I put my words on it, it's like, don't jump on social media and start talking, like you said, just talking noise to the masses. Because if you start with those relationships that you already have established and you do practice it in that way, those are the people that are going to be more likely to hear you anyway. I'm not, and let me be clear, not agree with you necessarily, but they're going to hear you more if you start showing up that way because they love you. And it's like, that's like, get off social media and go start with the small steps. And then what's going to happen is maybe that encourages them to then go do the same. Like have an honest and vulnerable conversation with somebody else they struggle with. Right.
And my thing is, like, I try to approach social media with questions. I mean, I do post every now and then. I'll post a quippy little, like, you know, thing that's like, here's my opinion, deal with it. But like we have that YouTube commenter that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Who made a claim. And
which
like,
I first want to say, we have a YouTube commenter.
We have like 8 subscribers now. We're small enough to where I can actually respond to the commenters.
Please subscribe.
But is a zoologist, and she made a statement. And I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that statement, but she's the expert. So I came at it with questions, and then more questions, and then more questions. And now it sounds like I'm an idiot because I'm like, can you explain this even more? But really, it's like, I'm trying to really, really hone in on exactly what she's saying. Because if I don't, I may respond to something that she didn't say.
Right. But that's you staying in your business and literally like, okay, I want to understand.
Right.
Because on the surface, I don't agree.
Right.
But I want to understand.
She probably has information that will help me understand why she said that, even though I disagree now based on the information that I have.
Exactly.
So it's in both of our highest good for me to get the information and say, where does that come from? Why do you, like, you know, like, connect these dots for me because they're not connecting, and so it's coming up wrong for me. But if you can connect them, fine. I learned something. We both win.
Yes.
And so coming at it with questions instead of coming at it with opinions and facts and statements and why the other person is wrong really helps. Because if you do that long enough, either they're going to lose interest and then the conversation was doomed from the beginning, or you'll learn something about them that you can connect with.
I just think you said the biggest takeaway ever.
The biggest sidetrack of the year.
No, if you don't take
takeaway of the year.
Yeah, if you don't take away anything else from this conversation, at least take away this. Come at it with questions. So the first thing out of your mouth when you hear something should be a question.
Yes, if you want the conversation to be productive.
Yeah.
If you want it to be a fight, then just make them mad by saying your opinion.
But that's not what we're encouraging people to do. That's not meeting the other human where they are.
Well, here's another thing that kind of plays into this. That was going to be its own episode, but it fits here. Because we were talking about labels, and we don't like labels, right? And when I went on my whole ADHD tear, or whenever that was last year, we were talking about the label ADHD and how it can be good or bad, right?
And I don't like the label of lesbian.
Well, I ended up making yeah, I remember one time you were leaving me a Vox, and you were like, I don't even know if I identify as gay. And I'm like, well, you married a lady. And you're so, I mean... Anyway,
I'm just human. Anyway,
you're just a human, and I love this human, and I married this human. But I found myself making a distinction that I think works. The container is helpful. The label is not. Because when someone tells me you have ADHD, right? That's two things. They're telling me what container I'm in, and they're telling me what they call that container. The label is almost always given by people who aren't in the container. And then inherent in the label itself is an ingrained power hierarchy that leans in the direction of the label, of the labeler, right? Going back to ADHD, attention deficit disorder. Deficits, there's less of it than I want there to be. Hyperactivity means there's more activity than I want there to be. It's a disorder because it's not right. There was a video that a friend sent me about a guy who has ADHD and has for his entire life, and he's old. And he calls it VAST. VAST, Variable Attention Selection Trait.
Interesting.
And that's what it would probably be named if it was named by somebody who had it.
Yes.
And then I learned that around our Thanksgiving episode, someone elucidated the fact that Native Americans don't generally like being called Native Americans because they're not native to America. It became America after we moved in. They're just natives. And I thought, I never thought about that before. And then even like the Navajos don't call themselves Navajos. The Spaniards called them that because they fought back with knives, and Navajas is Spanish for knife. They were the knife people, right? So if you say Navajo Native Americans, that's two labels that white people gave them that aren't what they call themselves. You know, right? So we don't even they don't call themselves tribes. They call themselves nation. We call themselves tribes. You know, so like all these labels that we have are given by the people who don't belong in the container, but the container itself is a good thing. Because when you find other people in the same container as you, then you find solidarity and you feel seen, and you can not have to explain yourself because they get it, right? And understood, and there's support, and there's commiseration there. And that's good to have the containers, but the labels, fuck that shit. And so what I'm getting at is that you have two sides of this two sides of the thing, and both of them have labeled the other side.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Socialist means one thing to conservatives, and socialist means a different thing to liberals. And so many words are thrown around to label the other side by people who aren't on that side. And then you go to the people who are on that side and say, what is your relationship with this word? And there you find the nuance. I grew up a Christian. Most non-Christians I encountered had an idea of what Christianity was, and it was for the most part homogenous. There's this idea of what Christianity looks like from outside Christianity, and then you get in Christianity and you see all the variety and all the nuance and all the differences of opinion and all that, but you have to be in the group to see the nuance, and when you're not in the group you don't, and then that one word is just a coverall for all of it. That doesn't help you. That doesn't help you understand them. It doesn't help you see them.
Right. I really this is a really good point. And I really like the distinction, the containers. Well, and you made you said it perfectly when you were talking about the older gentleman, that is labeled quote unquote ADHD, but his name for his container that he is in himself is a trait.
Yes, it's not a disorder, it's a trait.
It is not a disorder, it is a trait. You are just inherently born this way. It's not something wrong with you. And disorder implies it's something wrong with you.
Right.
And you even said this a few minutes into that, where you said labels are harmful. And they are, because it is given to somebody from the other camp.
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
There have got to be caveats to it. Like labels I don't think are inherently harmful. Just like the ones that we generally have for most of the things are harmful because they just happen to all or most be given by someone who's not in the container.
Right, which has a whole bunch of
It's
stuff attached to it.
dehumanizing.
It is dehumanizing. That's exactly what I was going to say. When you think about it in terms of containers, you are seeing the human. You are seeing the other person as they are. And then those humans within that container, I love that. They create their own tribe. That's a community. We need that. We are hardwired to connect. We need our containers.
And the containers are where you connect.
Yes, the containers where you connect.
But I
the
wonder
labels,
what we would call ourselves if the people in the containers were able to label the container. So when you find yourself on the other side of a debate where you are ideologically diametrically opposed, what words are you using to describe the other person? And would they use that word to describe themselves? And what does that word mean to them? Then stop.
Then stop.
And that's a good thing. That's a good thing to ask is what are you to yourself?
Right.
Because then it becomes a question of identity.
Yeah.
And when you, as a human being, look at another human being and say, what are you? Then you've dug so far deeper than all of these things you're arguing about. And we all come from the same place. Not to say that then the goal is for you both to like hold hands and run off into the sunset agreeing on everything. There are some people you're just never going to agree with.
Right.
And it's not about agreeing. It's not about reconciling your difference of opinion.
Behavior.
No, it's not about any of that. It's about the fact that the solution to polarization is connection. And when it comes to somebody that you disagree with, no matter how much you disagree with them, connection is the antidote to further polarization. And from where I'm sitting, what it looks like to me, in my opinion, this is a really, really fucking good way to connect, regardless of who they are. I can't tell you how many people I have problems with when it comes to actions, attitudes, beliefs, values, behaviors. But if I were to list them all out, I have done the work of figuring out where I connect with them, where I see myself in them, how I can get to a point where I can understand why they landed where they landed. And when I approach them from that perspective, magic happens.
Yeah.
So I wonder what people would do if they took to social media to talk about Capitol Hill, but refused to state their beliefs, refused to make a point.
Yeah. Right.
What would you do if that was off the table?
That's a good challenge. How would you see the quote-unquote other side?
Can you see the other side through their own eyes?
Yeah.
Because if you're not willing to, then
what are we doing?
Then look in the mirror and have that conversation first. And I'm talking to myself because I I have anger around some of the things that I've seen. There are some very, very, very deep-seated problems I have with so much of what I've seen in the last 24 and 48 hours.
But I mean, just take Black Lives Matter just for a moment. That example of we're still talking about this because people are still getting angry and refusing to just have these conversations. Right? It's like, no, I don't want to just agree to disagree. I just want you to hear me. Well, that is not getting us anywhere. And we're still having problems with it. We're still talking about it. Instead of, I mean, we're better. We're finally getting loud enough voices where I feel like these conversations are starting to happen. But look how long it's taken us. Because, you know, we've got so many people on both sides showing up in other people's business.
Right. And I have a success story from that. I was having a conversation with someone that I knew was a racist bigot. And his defense was to change the subject. Like, he never denied that he was a racist. He just excused it. Or then pointed fingers at other people or hypocrisy or double standards or invalid logic, but never really just stayed on topic. And I managed to drill down, like, what are you afraid is going to happen? What are you afraid this means for you? And he was just like, I'm just afraid that we're going to become a minority. And I said, why does being in a minority scare you? And there was a long pause, and I didn't have to say anything else. Everything I said in that conversation was a question.
Right, exactly.
And then you get to watch it click. Oh, shit.
Not all the time, but hopefully when you do.
But you have a better chance.
You do. Yep.
If you come at it with questions.
Yes.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like, again, you cannot control how a conversation is going to go. You can't control how someone else is going to respond. You can't control, and again, like, you can't even be motivated. I'm gonna use this tactic to then change your mind. If you're still motivated to change your mind, it doesn't matter. You're still in the wrong spot. But you can, if you're going to enter into a communication with another human being, maybe this is my marketing background talking, but there is a way to do it that maximizes the potential that what you are trying to say will be heard. But a key component to that is making sure that there is room for what they are trying to say to be heard. That is like formulaically, statistically increasing the odds that the conversation will be helpful, productive, healthy, whole, all of the things that we like to think our conversations should be.
So I'm going to throw a curveball in this.
Go.
What if, and I'm saying this not from me, but I know this is a question that's going to come up
from one of my friends who calls me after
most
we
likely.
release them.
Yeah. But what about, okay, I'm specifically talking about you, Ryan, obviously have big problems with racism. I do too, but I mean, you've been very vocal about that. So I'm using that as an example. And you have this friend that you, like you said, you knew was a racist, and you had that conversation by leading with questions to try to understand where they're coming from. What if it would have not clicked? What if it wouldn't have clicked and you would have walked away from the conversation and this person is still a racist and your anger is still there? What do you do then when it doesn't go anywhere? Because that happens, right? There are people that are really not ready yet. Or it goes back to that emotional maturity level, that you're a young soul level, like they may not have the capacity. Perhaps that's the soul lesson they're learning right now.
Well,
and the reason why I bring this up is because I also don't want to say, because I still feel like we're saying that we're still on a side. We're still saying we're not racist. We're still saying we're on this side, but...
Well, because we are.
No, we're not. I'm not.
I'm on the
side.
people shouldn't be racist side.
But that is humanity's side. That's the neutral. Because you're either not racist or you're racist. Where's the middle? I don't want to be not racist. That means... We're swaying things to
I do want to be not racist.
Please do not take that as a soundbite, anybody. Oh my God, I didn't even think about it.
One Instagram thing. Abby said, "I don't want to not be racist."
No.
See, that's what I'm saying. No. I think I hear what you're saying. That like too far in either direction is equally
wrong. You're
wrong.
attaching an outcome. Like if you're expecting him, you're going in, you're like, I'm going to stay in my business. I'm going to lead with questions. I'm going to figure out what's driving his behavior. And then that's going to get me enough information to bring him to my side.
Well, again, I've already lost if I'm there.
That's my point.
If I'm honest, anytime I enter a race relations conversation with someone I disagree with, there is a motivation for them to be less racist by the end of it.
Absolutely.
That is there. Sure. I'm not going to judge whether I think that should or shouldn't be there right now, but it's present. But there's also another part of me is just trying to figure out why they are where they are. Not so that I can have more fuel to shut it down, but because I don't think anybody believes they are the bad guy.
Right.
And so if you start from how do you believe that this makes you the good guy? Mm-hmm. Then, it helps. It helps me have those conversations without them getting heated. Mm-hmm. B, yes. I learn more about myself.
Sure.
Every single think about this. To go back to your question, if I said, "Why are you afraid of being a minority?" and it didn't click. Mm-hmm. When I was in couples therapy, and my therapist said, "Tell me what you really want." And I said what I wanted. And then I caveated it by saying, I don't think I should want that. It's unreasonable to expect that. It's really kind of an immature thing to want, but I want it and it's there. Mm-hmm. Right? After I said that, he didn't have to say anything else. Because it was a thing now. Mm-hmm. I said it out loud. I had to confront it. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I had to kind of caveat it so much and acknowledge that I like, that I don't agree that it is a thing I should want, right? That tells me that I need to work on it. And I did that work on my own. And so even if I had asked the question and I didn't see it click in that moment, now this guy had to live with the fact that he said out loud, I'm afraid of becoming a minority. And at some point, he's going to have to deal with that.
Yes.
Not to bring him to my side, but because we need to deal with our fears. Well, and I honestly, personally, I think that being a not racist person is a result of growth and maturity. And I do hope and wish growth and maturity out of everyone, myself included.
Right. Absolutely.
And so more than just end up being not a racist and we'll be good. More than that, it's like, are you moving in a direction of wholeness and healing? That's what I care about. That's what I'm motivated to see happen.
Well, and that's the point I'm trying to make. I want to have these conversations, but that doesn't mean that you go in with an expected outcome.
It is really hard to do that.
The point, it is really
I agree
hard.
with you, but it's just fucking hard.
It is. But, when we take this example, and what I can say a little more eloquently than I did before is there's, the racist camp, the not racist camp. I don't want racism to even be a thing.
Where there isn't a camp, it's just
no
part
camp.
of being human is just not racist.
That's the middle ground for me. So when I say I don't want to not be a racist, I don't want racism to exist, which means then I have to show up in every conversation about race neutral in a way where I see you as a human, right? And again, I can't stress enough, like I don't want it to exist. It exists. It's happening. But I also don't want to have these conversations and then hope you'll be less racist. I just want you to be a human. And acknowledge other people as humans. And that this we eventually, if we can keep showing up that way, then there is no camp to be in. We're just meeting everybody.
Not racist, because if you are a not racist, that means that it's an option to be a racist.
Yes, correct.
You don't want there to be an option to be a racist, so identifying as not racist is a moot point.
Yes, thank you. We're finally there.
Okay,
what I meant to say.
I'm glad that people didn't turn off the episode right when Abby said that.
Oh
listen
my God.
to the whole fucking thing.
Crap, that's not what I'm trying to say.
We are so nervous right now.
I know.
Maybe it's that, because remember a few episodes ago, maybe it wasn't a few episodes ago, maybe it was I don't know how long ago it was, where I was talking about how I didn't like how I showed up the 3 episodes prior. And how I couldn't control how the conversation went, but I just wanted to make sure that I showed up the best I could. Right? Maybe that is an attachment that it's okay to be attached to, or an outcome that it's okay to be attached to. Not attached to the outcome that the other person will be more like me by the end of it. I've also released the fear that I'll be more like them, because I think that's a big fear. Like, I don't want to look at your facts, because what if I become more like you? Right. But my outcome for a conversation that I do attach to is that I will have been present throughout, that I will have been mindful, that I will have been listening more than talking, that I will have been focused on connection over winning.
And I feel that's the appropriate outcome, because that's your business. That's what you can control.
Right. And when it doesn't go that way, I can do something about that for the next time.
Yes, you can change that. Yeah.
Right. And that goal being met is not dependent on anybody else doing or not doing anything.
Exactly.
So then I guess the question is, when you go to get in conversations about the election, what are your outcomes? And if the control over those outcomes exist in anyone else's hands, well, then you need to tweak your outcomes.
Take a step back. Go inward.
Right. I feel
driving that?
I'm probably going to regret saying that as soon as we release this, but right now I feel good about it.
This is why life is practice. This is hard, because you do feel very strongly.
I do. A lot of people do. Everyone does.
Yeah,
everyone is like
you
me.
as in the general audience, not that wasn't just you, Ryan. We all feel very strongly, and so this is hard to do. But by not doing it, look at where it takes us.
No one is happy with what's happening right now.
No one. It doesn't matter what quote unquote side you're on. Nobody is happy.
Yes, it's not like one side is like, oh, we're winning and y'all are losing, haha, and the other one's like, no, that's not how this has happened. It's like both sides are losing.
And even
right
if there
now.
is a side that's quote unquote winning and the other side is losing, the winners automatically then, like if we treat it that way, then the winners are in some way better than the losers. So
which
then
just
again, we're going back to
galvanizes
labels.
the losers to try harder to win next time. And and that's the pendulum swing. Like if you are, whether you're Republican or Democrat, if you believe that the whole government should be that party, check yourself. You know?
There is no balance.
No. There's not. And it's very obvious that half the country is on the other side from whatever you're on. And so if you want the country to be served, and if you want representation to work the way representation needs to work, there's going to have to be balance of both leading the country. And so I really, this is a time to go inward and ask yourself what your actual motivations are, what your actual goals are, what your actual desires are, and then just check them. Just check them. Just like, is this the best goal for me to have? Is this the best desire for me to have? And just be honest with yourself. You don't have to do it with anybody else. You don't have to admit anything to anybody else. But just check.
Your own internal work. Yeah.
And are you motivated to move the whole in the direction of something that is in service to the whole? Or are you motivated to drag everybody into a situation that you personally have opinions that are better?
You know the beauty of this, if we strip away the events, the things happening, the polarization, and we look at the reasons why this country was founded, I think we can all agree that the beauty of all this is we live in a place where we get choice. But just because we get choice doesn't make the other person's choice bad or wrong.
Right. And with choice comes
I'm not saying
responsibility.
across the board, but yeah, exactly. Right.
To make the right one.
To make the right one.
No, to make my choice. My you have to do everything.
To do your
the
own.
same.
Yeah.
No, me.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to agree with me.
Oh, jeez.
That's what I'm saying.
I am out.
If it's not what I think you should be doing, it's wrong. That's the point of this whole
Oh,
episode.
man. I hope that's not what they take away from this. Wow.
Well, you
I
said
really
it's,
am out.
those are going to be our two Instagrams. As Abby says she doesn't want to not be racist, and Ryan says everyone's wrong who disagrees with them.
Awesome. Oh, this is terrible.
We are nailing this
We have
episode.
totally lost everybody.
Everybody's
Light
mad at
workers,
us
what
now.
are those? We're not those anymore.
No, dark workers. I'm changing the
Dark
intro.
workers.
That actually has a nice ring to it.
Dark workers? No, I want to be a light worker. Actually, no, a dark worker could be the person that brings you. Anyway, whoa.
Shadow
okay.
work. I'll be the dark worker, and then we'll have balance.
There we go.
Oh.
We do need balance. We got to have balance. All right. What are you grateful for?
I am grateful. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Okay. I have an Excel spreadsheet.
What? For gratitude?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Because I am
I love
going
your
to
process.
do something. Yeah, it's a great process that takes a lot of time. Okay, where are you? Recent gratitudes. I'm opening it up. Hope I'm still recording. Am I still recording this? Yes. Okay. I'm grateful that we have a year's worth of gratitudes to look back on 2020 with.
Yes.
There are all kinds of voices out there who have nothing good to say about 2020. There's this Match.com commercial where 2020 and Satan are compatible, and it's funny, and there's a lot of shit that went down and a lot of real good reasons to hate 2020. We also have a lot of really good reasons to hate every year.
Yeah.
And a lot of beautiful things happened in 2020 as well. I don't want, this is not spiritual bypassing. This is not the just be happy, ignore the bad. Like this shit needs
This is
to get dealt with,
resiliency.
and we're dealing with it, right? But you can't only focus on the things that made 2020 shitty.
Yes.
And my gratitude today is that I have a spreadsheet showing that throughout 2020,
What? You didn't?
I have aggregated everything we said we were grateful for.
No way.
The entire fucking year. And I categorized them.
Ryan.
You were grateful for the podcast 1 time, for medical things 2 times, for your nanny only twice. I know
That's
it
it?
seems like more, but only twice was specifically your nanny. For your sister Sarah, twice. For Patrick, 4
it?
times. For me, 3 times. For the True North for the whole True North thing, 3 times. For any other people that aren't your Sarah or
Unrelated.
Patrick or your nanny,
Yeah.
5 times. Self-care related things 5 times, and community related things 6 times.
Wow. See, I do like humans.
So 2020 brought you
Interesting.
a wealth of gratitude for community, self-care, people, True North, me, Patrick, Sarah, your nanny, medical things, and this podcast.
Wow.
2020 brought me. I was grateful for you 1 time, this podcast 1 time, my son twice, other twice, community 3 times, the universe 3 times, just like the universe is at work in my life. Self-care 5 times, the True North whole ecosystem 7 times, and for other people 10 times.
Nice.
So 2020 brought me enough to be grateful for people, True North, self-care, universe, community, Bricks podcast, and you. And I had them all listed out. There are so many great things. There are so many great things in this gratitude. I want to post it in the show notes and be like, this is what,
Please,
these are the things we were grateful for all of 2020. And it's nothing but gratitude. Like, that's all this is. It's just the things that we were grateful for.
Okay, this really speaks to my heart. Like, I'm totally giddy on the inside, and here's why. Because before I had a child and I had a lot more time for myself, at the end of the year, part of my reflection process was, I still do hand journals. Like, This is my new planner for the year. And it's almost like a journal where I document everything in it. What I ate, exercise, if I went to see a movie, if I went out to a restaurant, where I went, what I did, who I talked with on the phone, everything gets written down. Gratitudes, to-do lists, all of it. So then I would sit at the end of the year and I would literally take my planner and go through the entire thing and say, okay, I went to 12 movies this year, and I would put them, I didn't do a spreadsheet, but I would actually write them out. Like, these are the 12 movies I saw this year. This is how many times I talked to this person. This is how many trips I took. And the reason why I did that, and so you got all these numbers, and I'm like,
You see why I needed Excel for this?
So sits in like my reflection mind, because then what I do is I use that as the jumping off point for the next year, because we have this tendency, like, I can kind of leave 2020 thinking, gosh, that was hard. That was really hard. Lost some great people, lost a lot of freedoms, lost a lot of things. There's a lot of grief, but I can go back, and that is physical evidence, tangible evidence
Provable
that
in
what
court.
my ego is telling me is bullshit. Like, I have goodness. Like, those movies represent fun for me. They represent, I don't go to movies alone. So that means spending time with people I love. It means, places I went, I got to learn new things, learn about new people, travel. Like, so I love that, because you're right. That is the evidence that no matter what our minds try to tell us, that lizard part of our brain that's so wrapped up in keeping us safe and telling us how hard it is, you have facts that is not true,
or that they're simultaneously true. Like, can you hold space for the tragedy and the beauty at the same time?
Balance. Balance. There it is. We're back to balance.
Balance, and yes. And so the gratitude, the fact that we have, which was your idea, you just were like, hey, we should start each episode with gratitude or whatever. And I'm just grateful for the fact that you said that, and then that we did it. Because now we have the counterbalance to the grief we feel, which is all valid and is getting processed and is not getting ignored or shoved to the side.
Yeah.
But it's counterbalanced. We have both.
And that's exactly what gratitude is. It is not ignoring that stuff. It's not ignoring the hard or pretending, like you said, just wiping everything over with sunshine and roses. That is not what it is. It's recognizing it, but then balancing it with the good.
Right. And one of the things that I wrote in the gratitudes was I was grateful for my mom one time because she has her gratitude journal and she enters two questions. Mm-hmm. One, I'm grateful for, and the second, I'm grateful because. Mm-hmm. This is the because.
This is the because. Yeah. Yeah.
What are you grateful for?
Oh, this one's going to be hard today, Ryan.
I'm holding space for you, Abby.
I am grateful for my grams. In fact, I'm going to pull this off. You're going to have to go to YouTube to see this, people. Look at this. This is Grams. This is a giant picture of my grandmother that's been cut out and put on a popsicle stick because she lived in this home and they wanted to do special things for their residents. And so they sent all their kids and grandkids these cutouts of them, and you would take a picture in your life with your loved one. So I took Grams hiking with me on the Appalachian Trail. So there's literally this picture of me on the trail, and I kind of put it where you definitely have to go to YouTube to see this because I can't describe it. But it looks like Grams and I are just hiking.
That is amazing.
And then they would print out the pictures and say, "Look, you've been here, you've been there, you've had breakfast, you went to school one day," and it's just a fun thing. So I have this crazy weird cutout. Oh my
God. This is not what I was expecting you to grab when I saw you reaching off camera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on a popsicle stick. Yep. Like it's as big as my head.
That is amazing.
So anyway, she passed yesterday. And she is she is a human that has always met me exactly where I am. And she saw me for exactly who I am. And she never tried to change me. She just held space for me. She just kept me safe and gave me a space to figure out who that was. And she never wanted me to miss a thing. And so I'm just going to leave it with a very quick story that sort of sums up all the reasons I'm grateful for her influence on my life. But I was probably like 10, 11, 12, something like that. And I was practically raised on her farm in Nebraska. And it was the middle of the night. And we were there, my brother and I, staying the night as usual. And she comes in and she wakes me up. And literally, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. And you're out on a farm. There's 1 yard light. It is, and we're in Nebraska. There is zero light pollution. It is pitch dark. And she wakes me up, and I think something's wrong. I'm panicked. And she's like, "You've got to come with me outside right now." And I'm like, "Oh my God." Okay, you trust your grandma. You go with her. And there was this little grove of trees kind of out by the grain bin. And it was one of my favorite places because there was like these, they were so close together, like these big cedar type trees, but they were so compact that there was no way to really get in them, except for this one little sliver where these two trees were far enough apart where you could kind of snake through the branches. And when you got into this little area, it was like this secret space. There were no trees in the middle. It was just grass and, whatever. And then you're surrounded by trees. It was like the safest place in the entire world. And when I wanted to go and just cry or figure out who I was or think or draw or whatever, I would go to that place. So we walk out there and we sliver through. She's the one that, showed me this place. And so we sliver through the trees and we are surrounded by thousands of lightning bugs. Like it was like, I felt like I was on another planet. Like it was so, I've never seen anything like it to this day. There were so many lightning bugs and that neon yellow that just lit up the whole night. And we get out there and she goes, I just didn't want you to miss this. And we stand in the middle of it for what felt like forever. I swear we were probably out there for an hour, standing, holding hands, just in awe of this secret space where I felt the safest in the world, and having this experience together that was the most amazing thing that I will never be able to probably find again in my lifetime. And then we went back to bed and life went on, and we never talked about it. We never shared it with anybody. We didn't, it was like hours. And not that long ago, literally, it was probably within the last year, we were having a conversation and she goes, do you remember that night we went out to see the lightning bugs? I'm like, I will never forget that night. And she goes, that was something special. Like, that was it. Like, that's all she said about it. But that was just her influence on me. Just like, I don't want you to miss this. You know? So, she was not this way with everybody. Most people don't understand our relationship. Sometimes she can be crude and off the cuff. She says things that hurts people's feelings. She's tough as nails. But with me, for whatever reason, she was my person. So I have a lot more to say about that, which we will say on another episode, about living your life despite grief, despite loss. But today I am incredibly grateful for her love. There you go.
Thank you, Abby. Until next time. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for being there.
Bye. We are grateful for you. Thank you for listening. And if you like what we're doing and you want more, then you can join our tribe to interact with other like-minded individuals. You can go through our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/True North Podcast 11.
Is it Podcast 11 or is it True North 11?
Oh, shit.
It's in our show notes. If you want more than that, you want some more hands-on healing stuff that we do, I do actual energy healing and body work, and Abby does life coaching and workshops. And you can find the URLs in our show notes when we figure out what they are.
And we are always trying to increase our reach and bring more people to find their true north. So we would really appreciate it if you could leave a review and rate it in whatever podcast platform you use.
Done. That's perfect.
What about the gratitude?
This one. Hang on. And one last thing. What are you grateful for? There. I said it. I said the thing.